In this season of WP Product Talk, we're taking a step-by-step journey through the entire process of creating a new WordPress product. Last week, we talked about how to craft a sound go-to-market strategy, and this week we reached the most exciting point of the journey, launching your new product. So a new product launch can bring instant success, or it can be a total flop. Let's talk about how to get it right.
This is WP Product Talk, a place where every week we bring you insights in product marketing, business management and growth, customer experience, product development, and more. It's your go-to podcast for WordPress product owners by WordPress product owners. And now, enjoy the show.
Hi, I'm Katie Keith, founder and CEO at Barn2 Plugins.
And I'm Matt Cromwell, co-founder of GiveWP and senior director of customer experience at StellarWP. And today we are talking all about how to launch your new product. It's been a while, but we've been kind of walking step by step to get here, and now it's finally time to launch.
Yeah, and that's why we've invited Devin Walker from StellarWP. Hey, Devin.
How's it going? You brought me on for the most fun episode, the launch process, right? All the hard work's been done to this point, and now it's getting it out the door.
Yeah.
Really great to be here. Devin Walker, co-founder with Matt here of GiveWP, and also still at Stellar. I'm a SVP there, and still get to work with Matt almost on the daily basis still.
It's good times. It's good stuff. We're launching stuff all the time. We actually have stuff we can't talk about that we're launching really soon here.
Yeah. Lots of conversations about that.
Yeah. But it's great.
Well, you should. That's all about pre-launch awareness, though.
Yes. Yeah. There's some that we probably should be hinting at for sure.
But that's part of a strategy anyway, like when to start revealing it.
Absolutely.
Exactly. I think something that reminds me, and it was a trend, and still is a trend, is the for pre-launch is the build it in public, right, mentality. And Matt and I tried that. Remember that, Matt?
Yeah.
For solid. But I think building in public is still like a very vital type of an initial launch process if you can do it right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep. Right now, though, we want to talk first about this subject and why it's so important for folks. In general, like, why is this subject of launching your product? So, I mean, you don't get to sell anything if you don't launch the product. So that alone is a big deal why it's so important. But for sure, I'd love to hear, Devin, like, what's your take when it comes to the whole, like, we've thought of a new product, we have been building it, we've been strategizing, we've been putting a go-to-market strategy, and now it's launch day. Why is this so important? What is the significance of this event? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's the first step out the door, and I think in order to be successful, you want to make sure that you're taking the right first steps, and to do that, you need to get as many eyes on your product as possible. There needs to be a social sharing aspect for customers that are, or users that are going in and viewing it, right? How are they going to share it, and how are you building that into the product that's going to spread the word of mouth just beyond that one person or whoever's eyes are seeing your targeted ads or what have you. And so I think if the initial launch is a flop, not only does that hit internal morale pretty hard, and it can slow down product creation, but it also makes things more challenging to kind of get those people who saw the launch back and viewing it again. So you're always trying to find those new eyes rather than creating advocates right at the start. And it's a balance because you don't want to hold back your product too long just for the sake of having a good launch, and that can be a costly decision. But if you do nail it right, and you're getting that positive reaction that you want for your product, it can really open up some doors sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. 100%. You and I talk about that a lot. Just the value and the importance of first impressions. That, maybe you have been doing the build in public, but there's still nothing like the day that you actually go live. Even if you've been building in public along the way, you've been teasing things out there, people are familiar. But as soon as you're like, all right, sales are live, it makes an impression, and it's something that sticks with people, and they're either going to just be like, whatever, and dismiss you,
Right.
or they're going to turn their heads and be like, oh, wow, no, this is actually a big deal. And if they think, oh, wow, it's a big deal, maybe they buy right at that moment, or maybe they just mentally bookmark it for when they're ready down the road. But the last thing you want is for them to be like, and then just forget about you. And then it's so hard to earn them back again in the future. So that's, in my mind, that's kind of the big deal about launching, is making sure that whatever impression you're putting out there, it makes an impact in a serious way, that nobody can forget in general.
Yeah, definitely. So
yeah, sorry to one last thing on that is not only what are those users going to think, but what do you want your competitors to think too, right?
Ooh.
Who are you going up against? And I think if your competitor's like, yeah, that's cute, that's not gonna, I'm not scared at all of that, that's not the reaction you want. You want them to be seeing a threat on the horizon, and oh no, my customers are going to jump ship because this looks so darn good, and wow, it's a different take than what we're doing. We should really think about what we're doing differently. You know what I mean?
Interesting.
yeah, that's true. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's interesting because we're kind of always we're talking about big launches, really making a splash when you launch, and that is good because it can jumpstart your sales. It's a great source of motivation, like you said a minute ago, and gives you some publicity that you probably can't get at any other time. For example, there's a lot of WordPress related newsletters which will only feature new products and not just small updates and things later. So by planning all that sort of thing into the launch, it's a good way to get publicity you couldn't otherwise. But I'm going to shift into my story time now and talk about the other perspective, which is when maybe the launch isn't the be all and end all for the success of your product. Because at Barn2, our plugins are really niche, most of them. They offer a specific feature, usually for WooCommerce, which people search for at a point in time. So if they're doing a project and they're building a store that needs really good product filters, they'll type WooCommerce product filters into Google at that time. They don't necessarily need to have the product in their mind, although that would obviously help. So when I do launches, I have a checklist of practical tasks, submitting to newsletters, trying to get on podcasts and things like that. So I do quite a lot of publicity, but I don't make a huge thing of it like a larger brand might, because I know that people will find my products when they are looking in the future, because we'll be well positioned in search engines and all that kind of thing. So I do a lot of stuff around the launch, but not quite in the same way that some brands. So I'm interested to learn from what the brands you've worked on are. And also, I've often done a lot of marketing before the launch. For example, for like SEO, if you publish content before your product is launched, you can already be ranking for your keywords, and then you might have linked it to a pre-launch sign-up list or something, get a discount when the product is launched. Or it might just have been a general article about the topic, and then you can insert your product into the ranking content after the launch. So if you go on the Barn2 blog at the moment, you'll see a bunch of Shopify articles, and we don't even have a Shopify app yet, but we are starting to rank prior to the launch of our first app. So for me, I plan the launch as a long-term thing rather than a massive splash. But I'd love to hear your stories and how you've done much more impactful launches.
I like that. Let me piggyback on one real quick, because the idea of basically pre-marketing, I think, is really important too. And I'll just say again, things I can't say, but things I can say. Like if you pay attention to any of the emails coming out of StellarWP brands over the next weeks and month, you might notice them talking about a problem to solve in one form or another, and that's a great way to prime the pump as well, and get things ready. Is to just highlight that there's a problem. Your customers are facing a problem in one way or another, and wouldn't it be great if somebody would solve that for you? And then, of course, it lands so easily when you're like, "Oh, hey, I can solve that problem for you." So that's a good one. I like that.
Yeah, I've seen some really good pre-marketing on your X feed about your Shopify experience and getting in there too, Katie. It's been fun to kind of see that unfold, and I didn't know there were articles on your website too. So that's great. And for somebody like me who's dabbled in Shopify, looks up to Shopify as a product and brand, and respects them, it catches my eye, and I'm anticipating what you're coming out with.
Yeah, which is interesting because I haven't even announced what our first app will be yet. That's another dilemma, which we've touched on right at the beginning of this episode, where you're keeping some cards close to your chest. At what point do you announce what it is? And then there's the competitors, like Devin mentioned. If you announce too early, will people start building the same thing because they see that you've got validated evidence that shows that there's a need for a certain product? So that's always a dilemma. How in public do you go, and when do you announce what it is?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, I don't know, Matt, you probably told this story a lot of times about our GiveWP launch, but I thought we came out of the gates pretty awesome on that. We did quite a bit of pre-marketing. This is like late 2014, early 2015, and launched at WordCamp San Diego in 2015, which was on April. And I thought it went really well. We basically did like a WordCamp travel circuit, and we went to a lot of them, and these were local camps. And one thing we learned is people received it really well. They loved the brand. We did a great job on the website, but we had one major miss, which was preventing our sales from being where we wanted them. And it was, we didn't have a recurring donation solution, which was subscriptions basically. And so we learned quickly from that, and I think that's relates to this topic, because what can you learn from the launch, from the initial launch, and what are people saying? If it is received well, like we did get a lot of good reception. Oh, wow, that's a good solution for WordPress. Like I understand where you're trying to fit between a form creation plugin and a full-on e-commerce solution like WooCommerce, right? But does it do subscriptions? And that was like every single question we got. And the answer was, it quickly went from no to we're building it. And then we spent another 4 or 5 months building it. And then once we launched that one, which had its own separate little baby launch, we'll call it, that was like our best sales day for like the first 3 or 4 years. And to see that pop, like we were stoked after that. Remember that?
That definitely put us on the map. It was like a follow-up launch that actually felt like it completed the initial launch in many ways. But at the time, we always joke about how the word we used all the time at that time was cockroaching. We were just like barely scraping by with sales and being able to pay ourselves at all, if anything. And and getting that second launch out is what started to finally make it look like, oh no, I think maybe we actually might be able to make a living from this.
Yeah, we can stop doing the client work and stop supplementing the product work with that, client work, which is a great experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's interesting. So when you did the first launch, did you know that subscriptions would be so in demand, or did you have to do a launch in order to start receiving those feature requests?
We knew it would be a fast follow. We didn't know it needed to be like warp speed fast follow.
Yeah. I don't think we realized that it was a deal breaker for a lot of people. That was the thing. We knew it was important, but we were like, hey, but you can fundraise anyway, like fundraise now, like that's great, just go. But they were like, no, it has to be subscriptions.
Right. And this was kind of the balance between MVP and getting it out there, spending another 6 months building to get this solution, or just launching with this, because it's launched with like 5 to 10 payment gateway solutions. So we'd have to build the core of subscriptions, which we did, by the way, with Pippin Williamson, with EDD alongside them, which helped with marketing as well, and arguably changed a lot of the landscape of how people sell WordPress plugins to this day.
Very true.
Not going to take too much credit for it. But anyways, it would take a while, and it would be a year of building rather than 6 months of building.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean that's that balance of like, well, do you launch early with your MVP-ish features versus get something out the door, validate everything, and do a fast follow later? In many ways, I think since our launch, Devin, sometimes we have talked about how we wish we would um, wait a little bit longer and make a bigger impression. But at the same time, with Give, we had that kind of fast follow approach more, which is interesting.
Yeah.
What I like about this too, though, is it dovetails a little bit with StellarPay, because you in particular, really asked a lot of these types of questions as you were developing StellarPay, and like which type of features you were going to launch with. And you can go into detail about it, but we did kind of postpone the launch for some features there, right?
It was almost the same story we just told,
Yeah,
right? Like we wanted
exactly.
to change how like it's not just a payment gateway, it's a whole lot more, right? And so how could you be a whole lot more? Well, offer subscriptions capabilities within it, and for free. And we were going to launch in August last year, and we decided, hey, this is worth holding back. And we've learned so much on how to develop that over the years. We're only developing for Stripe on this solution, so we were able to get it out in 2.5 months. So we did hold it back, though, because of that.
Yeah, and I think honestly that was a really smart move in this case, because we definitely have seen. I mean, we talked a little bit beforehand of how the space has changed so much. There really in the WordPress space, it really used to be you throw a really slick free plugin up on .org and you'll get adoption steadily over time, and you can really see that. Honestly, nowadays, like I see a lot of folks who get out there and have really great products, both freemium products or just free only products, and they just stick around the like 10, 20 plus active installs for a really long time.
Yeah.
And getting that, actually making an impression and actually starting to see the active install count grow is challenging. It's difficult. And StellarPay is also honestly growing a bit slower than I think that we'd like. But it is actually growing, and we are getting support requests, which I think are a good thing. And we are seeing people actually making money with StellarPay today already in a very short amount of time. And I don't think that would have happened without recurring in the first place. So I keep saying recurring subscriptions in the first place.
Yeah, I agree. And we did MVP the subscription. Like we don't offer, we're working on variation support for subscriptions right now. So we just focused on simple product subscriptions. And lo and behold, one of the couple of first questions we get in support is, hey, this is great, I want to use this, but I can't because it doesn't support variations. And so what we're doing today is launching a public roadmap where people can now see where we're going and how we're going to build, and build that right in, and involve the customers in the way that the product's being shaped.
Yeah, I love it. The public roadmap feature, I think, is really great, and I love that we're leveraging that with StellarPay in particular. I think having that at launch also is a big validator for a lot of folks, because they're like, well, I could buy this, but who knows, tomorrow it might not even exist anymore. But showing that, like, no, I have a roadmap, I have plans, and this is what we're building towards. And for folks to actually see releases come out regularly afterwards, that's a big deal. Like, it's a big validator for folks, and makes the launch even better.
Yeah, and it's also good accountability for you. At Barn2, I don't do public roadmaps because we would just never meet them. Priorities change and things like that. But if you do that, then you kind of need to stick to it. So if you have issues with motivating yourself, even actually, it's the whole like intention thing. When you state your intention publicly, it makes things happen. So that could be good for your own performance as well, productivity.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was a big fear for a while. Kid, you just have to move stuff around slyly and hope nobody realizes that, it changed columns.
Yeah, no one uses Wayback Machine on your roadmap, surely.
Right, right.
Yeah, they're all loaded with JavaScript nowadays, so it doesn't matter. We got a question here in the comments. That's a good one. Should we go there?
Yeah.
Sure.
Maria writes in, says, "Hey everyone, my question is, in your experience, what types of content work best for different stages of a product launch?"
Can I add for Matt? Remember the video we created for
yes.
Give? Oh my gosh, we got to find that because that worked great back then. It definitely shows its age now. But it had like little sound effects, like why use a flimsy form creation is like this little engine, and it fell flat. Or why use a complex e-commerce system for donations, and it was like trying to shove donations in this big complex machine. And it was all sort of animated. That worked really well. Just what do they call those? Just like a squeeze video, pitch video. There's some term for it, but something like that. That's 60 seconds to this I think was like 2.5 minutes. That worked really well, and I think it still works well to this day. You can use it on your homepage. Gets everybody a nice pitch of what's going on. And with video these days, I think video is just so important.
Absolutely. I think the thing that made that so helpful and successful was in that time, really knowing the pain point that we were solving, that we knew everybody had. And that was exactly that pitch, was that people are trying to do donations on their WordPress website, and they're either going to do a form in which it can take a payment, but it's not going to give you any information about your donors that you can really collate or anything all that well. Or you're going to deal with carts and taxes and shipping stuff that you all got to like hide or disable or whatever. And we're like, no, we're going to give you exactly what you need right in between those two. And anybody who was building nonprofit sites on WordPress at the time was like, oh my gosh, you're speaking my language. Like they just immediately knew exactly what we were selling. And it really hit the mark exactly right. So in that case, I think it really touched it really well. The fundraising space has changed a ton. Like nowadays, folks are like, well, I can't use your donation form if you don't have a big old giant powerful CRM behind it. And it's like, well, geez, that's a whole nother big thing going on now. Or you got to have a peer-to-peer platform if you're going to sell it. It's like, it's really gotten really intense. And trying to keep up with all of that is really different. Coming into the space now is a totally different thing than it was at that time. But back to Maria's question a little bit: what types of content are different stages of a product launch? I'm not totally sure. I'm trying to parse this a little bit. Katie, what's your take on this one?
Yeah, I think that's right to break it down by stage. So video is at the moment of launch. That's a really good way to get shares. It could be a short on different channels as well as on your website, as you say. So I think that's really good for the moment of launch. Prior to launch, I really like SEO content. So that's typically blog posts, roundups, tutorials, long form type content, so that you can start ranking for the relevant keywords even before you have a product. So we do a lot of that at Barn2, which Maria well knows because she is a freelance writer who has written a lot of our new Shopify content. And then you can then update that, like I said, when you launch. And another one is email. A lot of new product owners don't already have an email list. So one challenge prior to the launch, which I think you talked about a bit more last week, would be how to start building that sort of thing before the launch so that you can then email people when it's available. And if you've already got products, and this is an additional one, which is what happened with us at Barn2, you've got your existing list that you can promote to. So with our plugins, when we launch a new plugin, we email really targeted offers to people with specific related plugins. So we identify which of our other products are closely related, and then we email them a very specific discount, which is worded exactly for them, because we know their use cases. And I assume you can do that at Stellar as well, because you've got so many different products, you can cross-market more targeted.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a huge fan of email marketing for product launches. I really think email marketing is one of the strongest signals you can have for people indicating that they have a real interest in buying what you're selling. You're basically saying, like, if you want to buy this thing, give us your email. And they're like, yeah, here it is. And now you got whatever thousands of emails that are just sitting there waiting to see an email in their inbox. And you can see the ROI really quickly. If you send the right email at the right time to the right people at the time of launch, you'll see that traffic come in and those sales happen right away. And there's every kind of web analytics will show you that your email channel is working. It's a lot harder to know all of that, even with paid advertising or organic. It's very much more anonymous in those ways, but email really gets a lot more intent driven purchases right out of the gate. Even like when we talked about that recurring launch of GiveWP, that was heavily email driven.
Right.
We were telling people for months that it was coming, and for them to subscribe to our email list so they can get notified. And they did. They subscribed like crazy, and that email alone was a big portion of the sales that went out for that launch. So,
Yeah, it's really that like FOMO that's created during that pre-launch process to get that email list going. And there's been some really good examples of how that's been done in WordPress. I think the Etch product, say what you will, but that got an incredible amount of FOMO. I've heard
absolutely.
a little bit about the success of that, and I was kind of blown away with what I heard. And I think that in the last couple of years, since AI's kind of taken some of the juice away of organic search, I think email has gone up in value quite a bit during all phases of the launch process.
Yeah, ironically, it's like the old school method, but it still works. We actually, if you're interested in what Kevin Geary did with his product launch and with Etch, we actually had a really good conversation with him about it. It was actually the day of his kind of like big launch, actually, of
Oh, nice.
not the product of what do you even call what he did?
It was when you'd like sign up and pay for the
Yeah.
future launch, wouldn't you? So
It's almost like a private Kickstarter. He almost did like a
yeah.
private funded Kickstarter launch. And the day he did it, he was talking with Katie and I. It was pretty cool. Yeah. And it was a really insightful episode. So check it out on our website. Katie, do you have other examples of product launch tactics that you do?
I'd like to build on the email things that you were saying, because you were talking about the proven nature of it, and I can confirm that we pretty much always track sales from our existing customers when we launch a new product and send them a related item. And often it's lifetime. Lifetime deals get a bad press, but if you're a multiple product company, it can work out, because say if somebody has bought a lifetime deal for one of my products, when I launch a new one, I can still get more revenue out of them because I'm sending them details of the new product and they're loyal customers. So we actually get quite a lot of lifetime sales for our new products early on, which I know you meant to get recurring revenue, but lifetime costs like 4 times, 5 times the annual price. It is cost effective, and that's a good way to get help start covering your development costs from the build, and also get early feedback. And people like to be in the lifetime club, don't they? And so on.
Yeah.
So we often get lifetime customers to buy additional lifetime deals. So we have a spike of revenue that it takes a while to replicate after that initial launch week.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Interesting.
I've seen the Sure ecosystem Adam Preiser, just crush it on the lifetime launch deal. I mean, that's built into most of their launch products, and you know, Cadence for the longest time did. They still do. We never have sold a single lifetime license on GiveWP still to this day. For the first 5 years, we didn't even do a discount code. We're like, we're the Louis Vuitton of and I don't know if that works so well. I mean, it worked fine, right, in the end.
Yeah.
But I think I'm coming out with a pro version of WP Rollback. It's got 300,000 active installs on WordPress.org. And I'm thinking about doing the lifetime launch for that because I have no idea how to price this thing. And I'm thinking like $99, you get it lifetime. I am going to expire support though for it, but this is like the lowest support product. So if you could do lifetime without lifetime support, like I don't want to be 90 and supporting this thing still. I think that would be great.
But people don't ask for support long after. The support is a spike at the beginning, and very few lifetime customers do need much support in the future. So I think people get quite worried about supporting people 10 years in the future, but it's very unusual. And that is more than countered by the many lifetime customers that don't need a lot of support. So I think it's not too big of a problem. Yeah, we should do an episode on lifetime. We've not actually covered this properly before.
We touched on it in several different episodes. We touch on pricing stuff, we and all of that, and it's come up in different ways. It's interesting. I mean, I have gotten a ton warmer on it. I was extremely anti for sure, and I've seen on the Cadence side how it does make sense under certain circumstances. I think it's an interesting idea. I did like the way that we handled things at Give a little bit more. I like the plan idea better. Our plans grew with the customer, so every year when they renew, we would every time we added a new add-on to their existing plan, they got an email from us. It's like a launch email, except it's not for them to buy anything. It's that, hey, your plan just got better. We just added a new add-on to your existing plan. And yeah, we don't get sales from those emails, but we do earn a lot of loyalty from those people. And that should equate into longer lifetime value of each of those individual folks.
Well, you know what lifetime plans do to your business is they kill your valuation. Like you just can't. Yeah. So once that money's in, like if you try to sell to an investor down the line, it's gone. It means nothing to them, right? But if that person's still paying monthly, yearly, of course, it's just common sense. Like you're going to be evaluated off of that.
Yeah, that is an issue, and we monitor that every 6 months. So if the I think revenue share from lifetime is more than 15%, which it currently is, then we increase the price of our lifetime as a disincentive. So we're trying to keep it below that 15% for exactly that reason. Although hopefully it wouldn't be too big a deal because of things like the fact that we have multiple products. So like I said, we often do sell new products to our lifetime customers, and we do a lot of cross-selling to them with email sequences. And so there is potential revenue from those. But if you're a single product company, then I'd say lifetime licenses, you're not going to get anything more from them ever, are you?
Yeah. But I think most folks, when they go into product, I feel like they never think, oh, I'm just going to sell this one thing for forever. They probably are always thinking there's going to be another product in one way or another, or some sort of complementary product or add-ons or extensions or some other way, ideally, but you never know.
Did you at Give? Because you were very much, you're like a platform. Did you ever plan to do that?
I think I'm not sure if this is going to answer your question exactly, but I remember specifically before we even started building anything, like Matt and I had the idea, WordCamp San Francisco 2014, after building dozens of nonprofit sites and feeling the pain for too long. And before building, we sat down and we were like, what's the exit plan? Right? Like we didn't even talk about, we were just like, how long can both of us do this for? Like 5 to 7 years, and like what kind of valuation do we like? We just walked through those steps, and we were all in alignment on most of it, and a lot of those stars aligned in the end, I thought.
Yeah, For sure. But I think it's because the add-on model in particular kind of lends itself to that. So in many ways, it's like, yes, it is one brand, and it is one core product, but it's kind of like a product that kind of like can grow a lot over a long period of time. We always flirted with the idea of building a CRM next to it, in one way or another, or just enhancing a lot of the CRM features, which is what we've kind of done for the most part. But that could almost be like a parallel or side product next to it, because the needs of fundraisers is more than just simply just the donation form itself, and so there's lots more opportunity there for the whole brand to add additional products, even in some ways.
Right.
So
Right. We weren't seeing the CRM space grow too much in WordPress also. We were seeing CRMs fail, and we didn't want to do that. And so now there's some really successful ones actually.
Yep. People got a lot smarter about database development, and it's a lot easier to do it than it used to be.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you're building an ecosystem which naturally could have multiple related products, and that would make sense.
Yeah, I
But
mean, similar to
yeah,
WooCommerce, like, yes, it's one product, but I mean, it kind of could expand and grow for a really long time.
yeah, perfect. So I'm also keen to hear about how you launched the rebrand of Solid, because that I saw that a lot just around in many places when it happened. So it seemed to generate a buzz.
Yeah. I mean, that one was a lot different in the sense that we weren't really launching new product, and we were really kind of trying to be upfront about that in a lot of ways, but that we were reinvigorating really old products. But it was still, we treated it very much like a launch. And I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. It was a really unique challenge that we had, trying to bring new life into that iThemes brand. Um, we definitely did the whole. We called it rebrand in public instead of build in public, and we went back to our roots of like talking with people. The iThemes community, they have this iThemes Academy that's been around for a long, long, long time. And there's a bunch of people there who were really loyal to the brand, and so I started there personally. I went to that community and I started attending the events and listening to folks and contributing in the conversations. Nathan Ingram has been leading that there for a super long time. And it was really insightful and helpful to hear what they liked, what they didn't like. And they were really blunt and direct about the products and what they thought about them. We got tons of feedback. And it basically, in many ways, product wise, really strongly informed the roadmap for where we wanted to take solid security and solid backups in particular. So the rebrand in public route was also because we knew we were dealing with a very well respected brand. iThemes definitely, like from the look and the feel and even the name, it definitely felt dated for sure, but it was highly, highly respected in the WordPress space. And we wanted to tread extremely lightly with how we were doing that. There was not going to be any kind of out with the old and in with the new kind of messaging in any way, but more of like let's take what you all love and just bring new life into it, so you'll keep loving it. It was a very careful balance, and I think there's always more meat on the bone that we could have leaned into in different ways, for sure. But like you said, I feel like people paid attention, and by the time Solid got out the door, nobody was like, "What the crap is Solid WP?" Like everybody knew. Maybe not everybody. Like we definitely were fielding questions still after post launch for sure. But even like I mean, I was really happy with the fact that we migrated ton, like over, I think it was close to 3,000 blog posts on that old website, and all kinds of guides and ebooks, and tutorials and all kinds of things. We moved it all from one website to another, and the organic results actually just improved and got better after the migration. That whole thing was a real challenge, and I'm really happy with how it went in the end. So
yeah, you know what? We did all that in 2023, and then looking back on that year, it felt like being in the in-between between launching and sunsetting. And because iThemes as a brand had 250 plus themes that were developed in 2010 through 2013 or something like that.
very true.
It had plugins that were acquired or built internally that were just sitting on the shelf for years and years and years. And that we had to be, cautious about sunsetting and doing development work in there to make sure those customers knew that was coming and the lights are going to turn off someday, soon. And we had so it was a little bit between a launch and that, because we wanted to breathe new life in the core products. Like, we had to figure out what is the core of what iThemes is doing now compared to what they were doing 10 years ago.
Yep.
And what can they do for the next 10 years if we build this foundation for them? And I think we nailed that pretty well on the core of it. And once we got that, we have to consolidate the interfaces between these products. You had iThemes Sync, which was completely different than Backup Buddy. And then you had iThemes Security, and some of them had some loose integrations that worked okay. Some were broken, some worked great. And so Matt and I spent like the first 2 months just getting acquainted with what's going on here. What's going on with the website? It's got 3 different page builders, 65 different plugins, 3,000 blog posts. Like, how do you even build a page on this site? So it was like untangling a bird's nest of when you're going fishing or something. It felt like that for the first couple months.
Yeah. In many ways, we just decided not to build pages.
We're like, we got to just build a new site,
build a different website. But yeah, it went well overall, and lots of lessons learned for sure. Anything like that, but I think one thing that you highlighted that I think is super important to this subject as well is just really knowing the types of questions that are going to be asked. Like, when it came to sunsetting all these products, there's like 10, 13 years of customers who used various products of iThemes over all that time. And a lot of them were being sunset. And so we had to have a whole strategy for how we're going to guide people to get the right information about the product that they had, and how long is that license going to last? How long am I going to get support for it? What am I going to do with it? Are there alternatives that I can use instead of it? And so we had big FAQs.
Yeah, it's frozen for me too.
I can pick up. I know exactly where he's going with that, though.
Fine, you finish. You're like the same person, aren't you?
Yeah. So one thing that kept coming to my mind when he was saying that was like, thank God we had Cadence, because all those theme users, we could just offer them Cadence, and they were, and we provided it in a way where it really made sense to them as kind of like the future solution. And for security, we just, we made it a whole lot better than it was. Backup Buddy was the biggest issue because we tried to force that code base into a modern system for months and months, and we had great engineers working hard overtime on that, and we just couldn't do it. And finally, you see, now we had to make a kind of just a new start for that backup solution. And I think now in 2025, it's in a much, much better place. Matt, I picked up where you left off.
Perfect. You finished my sentences like always.
So should we go to some comments and then move on to best advice then?
Let's do it.
Mm-hmm. So follow up from Maria, who says, I've seen waitlists on landing pages do pretty well at the pre-launch stage to build an email list.
100%.
Yeah, that's worth doing. Yeah. Yeah, you have to tell people what the product is though first. This is my dilemma. I haven't announced what our Shopify app is yet, so I can't start doing a wait list. So, but yes, if you have announced it, then that's a good idea to do that.
I mean, that's a little bit of like that Kevin Geary approach too, though, is like nobody really knew exactly what Etch was. They really were opting in based on his reputation.
Right.
So there's a bit of a take you can do there too. If you have built a reputation in the space, that's also an Adam Preiser thing. Honestly, Adam was building a reputation for himself in all of the product spaces for years. He had a huge community before he started building product, and so as soon as he was like, "Hey, I'm going to build something cool, and here's where you could sign up for it," people were like, "Sign me up! Like, I love what you do and who you are and your reputation. So I don't care what it is, just sign me up."
Oh, totally. I know the reputation means the world to Adam, and he won't put his name behind something he doesn't believe in, especially the product and the team behind it too. And with Kevin, I think I don't know Kevin really at all, besides just watching him post online, and the way he builds anticipation and somewhat vague descriptions of what he's trying to build gives FOMO, and because of his reputation, the community he's built off of his past. They have that like ability to fill the reservoir and then break the dam, and that's got to be the best tool for launch, right?
Yep.
Yeah, if you have that. But yeah, hopefully we've provided some advice for people that don't have that, because it can be quite intimidating when you see people that are such powerful influencers in the community that they can get thousands of signups like Kevin did for a product that won't be available for a year, that people don't understand really what it is. That's just incredible.
Yes.
But there are things we can all do if we're not in that position as well.
Katie, I am certain that you have customers who also build sites with Shopify who are going to buy your Shopify plugin just because it's from Barn2. I'm certain.
For sure.
Let's hope so. We will see. Yes. And the final question is, after finishing developing a premium WordPress plugin, how long do you take to make it available for your customers? What are the things you do or think should be done in that meantime? Who wants to go first?
0.5 seconds until you make it available to customers.
Same.
I mean, if you've built it, ship it. If it's, that's in many ways, that's like a little bit of what we've been talking about along the way is if you've got it, ship it, get it out there. People want to see what it is. And the truth is launch is the big validator. Like, everything you think about your product, whether it's good or not, or whether it's going to, fly or not, whether people want it or not, you're never going to know until you ship it. And when people start actually giving you money for the thing that you built, it's the big validator. So there's no reason to hold on to it and wait. I don't think personally.
Yeah, you probably should have a website. You probably should have a way to sell it and some licensing mechanism.
Fair.
But I consider that part of the plugin. So if all that's, well, I mean, the website's not, but it's hard to sell it without a website. I don't know what WP Shipper is, but it sounds like a freemium type of competitor or something like that. Maybe that could get you there. But anyways, yeah, 0.5 seconds. Why hold it back? If you're sitting on like something that's sellable, then sell it.
Yeah. It would be really interesting to try to like ship a product where it's like, hey, sign up here and then send me a check in the mail and I will mail you a USB stick with the product and see if people actually buy it.
We used to receive checks in the mail, man, pretty regularly.
Wow.
I know. People inquiring over email, can I send you a cashier's check for, no, please don't.
Be like renewal 2018.
Oh dear. Yeah, I would say I don't hold products back before I launch them unless there's a specific reason to. For example, Christmas. If you're trying to get a bit of buzz around your launch, it's probably not a good idea to launch in the second half of December, for example.
True.
Right.
Black Friday is another one. It may be best to avoid launching over Black Friday unless you're going to do a massive discount at the same time, which you could use to get extra buzz. It could be a benefit, but you do need to consider that as part of your strategy. So there's a few times of year that I'd say hold back. Whereas if it's just May or something when nothing happens, then just go ahead and launch when you're ready. That's what I always do anyway.
Good point.
Yeah.
But people ask, don't they? Oh, when are you going to launch? I'm like, when the development's finished. And I always make sure the marketing is lined up. So keep an eye on the development and make sure, like at the moment with our Shopify app, I don't know when the development will be finished and I don't know how long it would take Shopify to approve it, but I'm planning the marketing, like the images, branding, all that kind of thing now, so that we're not going to hold back the launch when the development is ready.
Exactly. Last thing you want is marketing coming up the works. Marketing should be the thing that helps accelerate everything rather than slowing stuff down, but it's hard. Marketing is a lot of moving pieces and a lot of details, and you don't want to get it wrong. You don't want to ship, 15,000 emails out there that actually have the wrong link or something like that. So
We've done that too.
Yeah, it's got to be cross-checked.
We've all made email mistakes. Yeah. So, I think we've covered loads of different angles of launching a new product. Let's tie that together and talk about our one piece of best advice. So if someone came up to us at WordCamp and said, what's the biggest thing I can do to make my product launch a success? Devin, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I would say, there's a number of things that come to mind. But then the thing that comes most to mind is focus on the brand. I remember a lot of people coming up to us at WordCamps and saying, I have no idea what Give is, but I love your branding. And tell me what it does. And it turned eyes on us online as well within the community. It had a unique flair and it just all fit together in a way. So it feels like I shouldn't be saying brand. It should be product. The product is part of the brand, but I'm gonna go with. I thought we really nailed it on that. And if we had just a generic kind of boring thing, I thought it wouldn't have been such a well received in the market. It kind of just was. And then we had great swag on it too. We were known for just having some of the highest quality stuff, and that bled into like what our product and our marketing. And so that's kind of where my mind's at right now. It might change tomorrow if you ask me, but right now that's where my mind's at.
Yep. I agree. I think what I would say is focus on anticipating all the questions. When you launch, there's going to be a lot of questions out there. And questions are the things that will prevent people from buying if they're not satisfied with the answer or if they can't find the answer. So if you really have really streamlined ways for folks to get informed about any questions that they have, good solid docs, good solid FAQs, a really simple way to contact the team immediately. I will say that for the longest time, I never wanted to do live chat for support in any way. But when we launched GiveWP, we launched it with live chat on the website so that people could get questions answered. And I still remember Sarah Gooding reaching out on the live chat. And I was like, oh, hey, Sarah, this is Matt. And she's like, wait a second, is this actually Matt or is this somebody else? And I was like, no, it's, 100%. I'm on the live chat trying to answer everybody's questions. And I did a WP Tavern interview over live chat the day of our GiveWP launch, which was super fun. Nice. I think making it easy for people to get their answers is a big deal and helps them to make sure to click that buy button on the day of launch. So,
yeah, definitely. So we've got one more question, which I'm going to go into before I do my best advice. So Maria has asked something we probably should have acknowledged when we were saying just launch the thing as soon as it's been developed, which is, when do you guys typically do user testing? And are testers typically developers or average users? So yeah, you've developed it. To what extent should you get people to test it first? So this is not your QA testing, which should be an internal process. This is users. And I think this links in, there's sort of user testing as a formal process. And there's also beta testing where you get people to test it with a view to feeding back, I think, more bigger picture on the concept. And when it's anything but a really tiny plugin, I do like to recruit, even if it's just a few beta testers, to tell me how it is from their perspective. I do think that's quite useful. At Stellar or at Give, have you done anything more comprehensive with user testing?
Honestly, not very much.
What was that service we used for Solid? It was called like with some success we used a third-party SaaS service for user testing, but with WordPress plugins it's a lot different than, you have to have some knowledge on how this ecosystem works. So that's where I think that I've seen Cadence have a lot of success opening up some beta features and having those. And I think if you have an existing audience and they're willing to test that and provide you good feedback, then it's worth it. We've had varying successes of just sort of not really valid feedback come in, and you can sort of pick those out. So I'd say my experience with it has been 50-50 on the success of it. But
The one time when we did something really intentional was when we were building out a Salesforce add-on for GiveWP. We didn't know the Salesforce ecosystem really, really well. And we were nervous about how with Salesforce, you can configure it to do a million things. And so that makes doing an integration with it really challenging. So we reached out to our kind of like agency power users who all had been telling us that they really needed a Salesforce integration. And we said, hey, we're thinking about doing this. Would you be happy to join us on a call and talk through it? And that's what we did. We did a series of those. We called them Salesforce add-on town halls, essentially. And we had, I think, about a dozen agency owners who joined us a couple different times. And the first one was like a discovery call where we just listened to them. But the second one was more of where we started to show some UIs and get their feedback on that. So it wasn't as much of a user testing of the actual product, but it was a lot of user-informed feedback. And I do think that launch, it was not huge because we didn't have a ton of people using Salesforce or anything. But I do think that it was way smoother than it would have been if we would have just built whatever we wanted and hoped for the best. So it ended up serving a lot more people's needs out of the gate. We had to do some fast follows for sure, but that kind of intentional, informed user feedback process, I think, was super helpful in that particular case. So.
Yeah, it is useful for existing products which you're adding new features to. And as you say, you've got the people who are asking for that feature. So you can say, well, hey, do you want to beta test it? And maybe offer them a free license for the next year or something in return if it's a lot of work for them. And the part of Maria's question, are testers typically developers or average users? I'd say those are two separate things. So in terms of the QA quality assurance testing, not necessarily developers, but they need to be, well, QA people, really. We hired one last year at Barn2. We've got a full-time tester now who's not a developer. Their specialism is in QA testing for software. So they've added a lot of value compared to when our developers used to test each other's work prior to a release. The QA guy knows all the new tools and techniques and the most appropriate way to report these things. So I'd say that's probably the specialism for that kind of testing. Whereas beta testing, user testing, is about the average user.
100%. Very different things. And honestly, we often wish our developers would test our product more. They often are really good at just like building it and being like, hey, I did the thing.
Work ship it.
Yeah.
Most developers, sorry, every developer, but yeah, they're not necessarily the best testers in my experience.
Yeah.
Okay, so after slagging off all developers, I'll move on to my best advice.
Like, I'm not listening to this show ever again. You guys suck. Katie, what about your best advice?
So my best advice is to just get on with the launch and do it, because it's really easy to procrastinate and try and make everything perfect before you launch. Yes, it has to be good enough. You have to be able to present your product professionally. But beyond that, then you just need to get on with it and then start listening to your users and learning and improving from them, because that's where the real insights come in after you've launched. So, well, that's a wrap. Devin, thank you so much for joining us. Where can people find you online?
You can find me on X at interwebs or on my website, devin.org, and DVIN, not with an O.
Excellent. And next week, honestly, we are having a break. We are intending I'm going to be actually at CloudFest in Germany. And I don't know, I might try to do something or maybe not. We were intending to do a live show there, but that didn't come through exactly. So next week might be a break. Or I'll just get like a couple people on a live stream super quick and we'll see what happens. But because it'll be a fun conference with a lot of good people there. I'm going to see Vito there from Adarim. I'm going to see Oliver from PatchStack. Maybe I'll just get them all on a call. We'll see what happens. So
nice. I think Yost is going to be there too.
Yep.
Sounds good.
Miriam from Elementor, like get the whole gang together.
Yeah.
Impressive. So if there's a show, it will be a surprise. Yeah. So special thanks to Post Status for being our green room. If you're enjoying these shows, then do us a favor and hit like, subscribe, share it with your friends, reference the show in your newsletters. And don't forget to tune in either next week if we do a surprise announcement, otherwise 2 weeks from now when we'll be continuing the journey of what happens after you have launched your product. Bye.